morning, everyone. Welcome to Track 2. My name is Shamar, the DJ of the track today. Hope everyone's had a great, finally in-person conference at CornCon today. If everyone's getting excited and getting to see some people again. I'm here to introduce our next speaker. It's Garrett, the CEO of Phalanx, and he's going to give a great presentation on hot desks around the heart seat for hybrid work security. So please give a hand up to Ian and enjoy.
All right, great to see people in person. So yeah, Ian Garrett, going to give a great talk here on hybrid work security, how it's a little bit different from the remote nightmare that you've all been living in the last year. And then we're also going to go through a almost choose your own adventure campaign towards the second half of this. And we'll go to a day in the life of someone that is living a hybrid work world. So who am I? Who is this guy? So yeah, long story short, love building things, love breaking things, usually on purpose, but accidental, hey, love some chaos energy. Currently CEO, co-founder of Phalanx, for a data security company. Prior to that, did some work either as a PM, data scientist in the defense industry, and prior to that, was actually at Army Cyber and built offensive cyber capabilities. So again, like building things that break things. And also my PhD research is also focused on the intersection of cyber and AI, so if there's any of that you're interested in, definitely follow up with me afterwards, and hopefully I won't talk your ear off. So, remote versus hybrid work. Isn't this stale news? That's so 2020, right? So, we've been dealing with the issues of remote security for the last year. There's a lot of those impromptu put together. But really with hybrid, it is different, so we'll cover those differences. But just a quick show of hands, how has anyone been affected by remote security? Did that cause you any issues at work? Quick show of hands. Did anyone find challenges with that, or has it been a great year for everyone? Looking like remote security didn't cause any problems, except for maybe the guy in the back. But all right. So remote work versus hybrid work. So, pre-COVID, if you thought about remote work, it was really, people that were in the office were in the office. People that were remote, generally were remote. So either they were traveling or were full-time remote. And what that really meant was that people had, understood what they needed to do, weren't necessarily the biggest targets out there, and they were used to it. The people in the office, everyone had their own habits that built in. What happened last year, again, went to straight chaos, and it was like now people who used to have in-office habits were at home and doing whatever they wanted to do, accessing their work emails on their personal devices, accessing VPNing from any location. And because of that, a lot of companies did go into just ad hoc systems, trying to grab what was out there and just kind of piece it together to make it work. And what we've all witnessed is that on the attacker side, that was just everyone had a heyday with it. So generally, and last year because of COVID, a lot of people remote work meant staying at home, not necessarily like going to Mexico and working from Mexico. So what we're seeing now is that's changing with hybrid work. So instead of just necessarily staying at home or in the office, people are able to have that mix. You could spend 2 days at home, 3 days in the office, or workations are getting bigger as COVID is going over. It's like, hey, now if I want to work remotely, that means I'm going to go to maybe Seattle for a week, and then go over to Texas for another week, and then come back to the home office. And as you can imagine, a lot of that opens up your attack surface. So it can be a lot more than just home, just office. It could be really just anywhere. And how do we protect against that? How do we figure out a strategy that deals with, you really don't know where people are. So again, just hitting up, just a recap on how last year was not great for everyone. So social engineering and phishing attacks, also obviously the #1 attack vector, skyrocketed last year. And why is that the case? Anytime there's uncertainty or just in general chaos, that's when these attacks thrive, and that's because of a number of reasons. As you imagine, you don't really know what the ground truth is out there. People are getting all kinds of emails, a lot of every day, there's something new's coming out. So as as people are open to the idea of more and more things out there, you know, they're willing to click on a lot more, willing to download a lot more, and willing to go places that they normally wouldn't have, and accept truth from a lot of places that they wouldn't have, and obviously that makes it easier to fish them. So also, you know, again, at home, you know, people are used to doing what they do at home anyway. So it's like, hey, I got my work computer, but I actually have my personal laptop. Let me just, you know, we have cloud everything. Let me just log into all my work stuff on my personal laptop. But maybe your personal laptop doesn't have all the controls that your work laptop would. So again, really bringing in that availability to access that normally wouldn't occur, you know, in the standard office workplace. And then, of course, you know, we're all more comfortable at home, so what that really means is we're going to be just less security conscious in general, and there's less, you know, peer pressure from your peers being like, hey, did you see that phishing, like that email as a phishing attack? And you're like, oh, that was a phishing attack. So it's like at home, you know, people are more distracted, less security conscious, and that alone is causing enough issues. So, you know, 2020's passed, we're moving into newer, bigger problems. So again, you know, just hit you with a quick stat that 56% of IT technicians believe, you know, employees picked up bad cyber habits over the last year. You know, that's the reality, is that, you know, we get comfortable, you know, we're still navigating the new normal or whatever, but, you know, what we're finding is that people have really established new cyber habits at their home, and they're ready to bring that into the office. So, you know, either that takes retraining on employees-wise, or finding new controls that really adapt to, you know, this new reality. In addition to, you know, people were VPNing in, yes, to get into the corporate network, but at the end of the day, with the rise of just cloud applications, people are able to do work without VPNing in, but these devices that they're bringing are coming in and out of that corporate network, both physically and through VM. So again, that's causing havoc on any kind of network security, because you're like, hey, we're just letting these devices come in and out, and, you know, with that also is the rise of people wanting to do bring your own device. So, and as you all know, bring your own device is super hard to lock down unless they are willing to accept those controls on their personal devices, which is often not the case. So, you know, some of the biggest issues with hybrid is really adapting to the fact that people want to perform work in a certain way, and that's just bypassing a lot of the standard cybersecurity controls that we have today. And then, you know, finally on this last bullet here, like network security, that was great, you know, 10, 15 years ago, but we really need to move beyond just pure network security. Obviously you need to have it, but you cannot just like say that, hey, we have a perimeter, let's lock down this perimeter. I'm sure you all know, you know, zero trust is like, hey, this is not gonna work for us anymore because there isn't really a perimeter anymore. Yeah, you have your corporate office, but a lot of smaller businesses don't even have a corporate network, particularly if the majority of their workforce is remote and plans on staying remote. So going into just kind of like, hey, what are some more issues with hybrid in general? Like I said, attack surface is it's growing. It's not just, so again, in the office, if everyone's in the office for the most part, your attack surface is really like, how do we lock down this corporate network? And that's what I'm dealing with. What we saw last year with remote work, it's, you know, people moved out of it to deprioritize the corporate network, but, you know, prioritize. My perimeter is now, you know, this remote workforce, and everyone's remote. How do I lock that down? How do I help that out? You know, we all pretty much adapted at this point to that. But hybrid is, now you have to deal with the in-office people, the remote people, and all the in-between, and remote people not even at their house. Like, home network can be pretty insecure, but now people are just going onto random public Wi-Fi and just doing work. Obviously not great, right? So this one of the biggest issues with hybrid is it's a massive attack surface, and because of that, it really requires a shift in mentality in how do we secure things instead of thinking that it's networks, and honestly, instead of even thinking about it as endpoints, we need to really dig down. How do we authenticate each user to the data that they're trying to access and the actions they're trying to perform? VPN, obviously, you know, hey, I'm sure you're all on a VPN right now if you're connected to this public Wi-Fi. If you're not, I highly suggest it. But yeah, VPN just like is good, but isn't good enough anymore. And that's because, you know, as we shifted into the remote workforce, and especially for hybrid, VPN creds are now being targeted more than ever. So yeah, having a VPN into your corporate network is great, But if those creds are being targeted, then there's more attackers masquerading into your network, which is, again, if they're not physically located, you really don't know who's jumping into your network. And that plays right into this next bullet. The previously ignored attack approaches are gaining traction. So just because having cloud apps wasn't necessarily a big security threat back in the day, just because VPNs were great, doesn't mean that that's okay going forward. Now that this is the new reality, and this is how more of the workforces are interacting with their corporate entities, that obviously attackers are shifting their priorities away from main perimeters like corporate networks, and shifting towards how do we target these individual employees, and then so that's going to cause a lot more again, attack surface, a lot more issues, and a lot more unique attack venues than we have seen before. So it really goes into how do we protect our most important assets, so that if these are compromised, our network and endpoints are compromised, we're still able to retain security on what we need most. So, hey, what are we doing about it? So on the personal device end, we really need to focus on tracking those, right? So, and this is difficult again, because I mentioned bring your own device has a whole layer of issues associated with that. So, we want to be able to understand what devices are supposed to be connected to our network, who owns those devices, and where are they going, where have they been. If you want to bring your own device into the corporate network, maybe it needs to be quarantined until it's ensured all the patches are updated. Make sure it's clean. And did you go out of country or whatever for a number of weeks and while working over there? All of that is important to take note, and we need to really be able to track that going forward to understand who's coming in, what do they have, and are they supposed to be here? Unsurprising, I'm sure, strong authentication. So, as we move forward, really understanding, if the person who's on the device is who they say they are, is the person even accessing that data who they say they are. This goes beyond just the insider threat, obviously, but it really can be, especially because remote, you can't even track IPs anymore. Who knows where people are as they're accessing and doing work? And unless you want to stop that as a work policy-wise, again, it's instead of trying to fight what people are trying to do, let's all find a way to really flip that concept and work with people, saying, hey, you want to work from three different locations, all on public Wi-Fi for the next 3 weeks. How do I protect your activities coming into the work network to still enable you to do the work that you want to do? And a lot of that, it shifts. It's a big shift from, hey, let's build and buy capabilities that are protecting big swaths of our network and all of our corporate devices, to being more granular and focused on the individual itself needs to be more aware than ever. So what user education, obviously that's always been important, but more and more as we focus on the individual, they need to understand what is reality, how do I do my remote work in a way, and hybrid work in a way that is protecting my devices, protecting the network, and really has responsibility and ownership of their own security, and how it plays into the greater company. And then some of the other things that we should be looking at, and again, unsurprising here is zero trust, right? I'm sure all of you are probably tired about hearing zero trust. But it is important, right? The perimeters are getting smaller and smaller. You can't even segmenting networks isn't good enough anymore. We really got to focus on not just endpoints, securing each one, but how do we protect the data within, which goes into that second point there, zero trust for the data. You want to be able to take that concept of zero trust and really bring it down to your data, to your files even. So, as you can imagine, if there's a remote access onto your device that's maybe not you, maybe they masqueraded as you, they're on your device, and they're opening files at will, or they're shipping off files at will, you want to be able to say, just because I'm on my laptop, am I really opening that file? Something like that. So really, we got to start getting as granular as possible. And going in that last point there, get deeper. How do we take our controls that used to be good enough to say, hey, this network is secure, hey, this cluster of devices is secure. How do we take that and bring it more and more granular? Get rid of the concept of even of endpoints, right? Because if you think about cloud, all the cloud work we're doing, files and data is being passed around multiple devices. I could be logged in on 4 different devices, getting the same document, working on the same document. We really got to get rid of the idea of having these set perimeters and saying like, what is important? This data is important. How do we actually put controls on the data while not putting too much of a burden on the security staffs? For anyone that has any security teams, I can't imagine that you have too many people working there, right? So there's a massive shortage of security personnel across the industry. So adding more logs and auditing, adding more work for them to put in controls isn't the right answer. How do we make all that automated? How do we really focus on empowering the individual to take ownership of their own security? So ultimately, it's not a lack of our technology, it's not a lack of our capabilities. We have plenty of cyber capabilities, and a lot of smart people solving smart problems. But if the users doesn't adapt it, if people are going to bypass it, if people are going to improperly use it, then it's going to be useless at the end of the day. So the problem isn't technology, people are the problem. And that's not something I think anyone would disagree with. If you do, let's talk after. But we really need to solve for the human problem here, and that's really starts with again, the user education, as automatic as that, make everything automated, and then really just focus on what's important. We don't want to get in the way of people doing work, because if you get in the way of people doing work, they're going to bypass security. How do we work with people to enable, because all they want to do is get the job done that they're being paid for, and unfortunately, security isn't in that job description yet, but I think, the more we go forward, the more that needs to be part of, again, ownership. So, with that being said, we have a choose your own adventure. So some of this will be, pretty basic stuff, but hopefully entertaining stuff. We're gonna go in the day in the life of, and yeah, let's just get at it. So, paint me Owen Edwards Jr., aka P. Owen Edwards, aka just kind of goes by Owen. This guy was bullied, so he doesn't really go by his first name, Pinckney, he just really goes by Owen. Late 20s, married, no kids, he's outside of Chicago. It's been remote for the last year, 2020. His company is now bringing in the availability for hybrid. He's pretty excited about that. Business analyst at Software Solutions Corps, so he's tech aware, but he's not very super security conscious, but he's done the training, so he's pretty okay. And again, pre-COVID, he was totally in the office. During COVID, totally remote, and now he's pretty excited to be able to flex that hybrid work. So, first decision of the day: where should Owen work? So, he's a coffee addict, like myself, and I'm sure many of you. So he's either where is he gonna drink his coffee? Is he gonna get some coffee at home, or is he gonna get coffee at the coffee shop? He's excited, he woke up, he doesn't know where he's gonna work this morning, he just knows he's not going to the office, he doesn't have the patience for that at the moment, and he's in desperate need of coffee. So, he's known to make some pretty poor decisions pre-coffee, and some pretty poor decisions after coffee. But either way, he knows that he can work from anywhere, and he's gonna do that. He has a laptop, he's got a personal laptop, but he has cloud access on either one. He just usually defaults to the work laptop, but sometimes he's going to whip out the personal one to do work. So, audience poll, where should he work? Show of hands on home. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Coffee shop. 1, 2, 3. All right, 4. Looks like home it is. Working at home. So this is something that I'm sure we're all very familiar with at this point. Most important perk, working at home is never-ending flow of coffee. So yeah, Owen's watching the news. He sees that the COVID vaccine boosters are actually now coming out, required to keep his vaccination alive. He had a really hard time getting vaccinated. Initially, there was a big shortage, so he's pretty pumped to get that. He's also distracted. His wife's also working at home. He doesn't have kids, but he actually does have a dog. That's constantly bringing him out every hour. He's working in his PJs, very cozy, very comfortable, but he also is kind of a clean freak. So he's constantly cleaning, constantly distracted, getting work done, but always something on his mind when he's at home. So, second decision, he's working, he's chugging along, and a wild email appears. The COVID vaccine booster shots are available at pharmacies today and nearby. So, at the bottom of the email, there's a little button you can press that locates the nearest booster shot. So that's pretty nice, pretty easy. He got it at CVS, the regular vaccine at CVS recently, so he's like, okay, hopefully they'll have it again. So decision, yes or no? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, no's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, yeah, so here we go. No. Unsurprising phishing email, right? But hey, I mean, this was actually a huge issue during COVID, during the remote work, is that emails like that were coming out. Attackers were actively using any information about COVID as a way to phish, because as we knew, it was decentralized, right? So it was like straight up, the grocery store was like, hey, you can get some vaccines here today for free, and you're like, whoa, okay. So like people were getting these emails all the time. Half of them were legit, half of them were really not. So there was like, hey, you can come in, like click this link, get in line, and people were like, sure, like I don't know what's real. And then obviously on news-wise, there was nothing that was out there to say like, hey, only these sites are legit. But hey, congrats, you avoided some malware via phishing tag. Still working, and hey, we got something else. Wild, outdated browser detected. So he's been scrolling the internet, and when a pop-up appears that saying it is recommended you update your browser to the latest version to view this page. So please update to continue. Yes or no? Yeses. 1, 2, 3. No's. Everyone else. All right, here we go. Oh, look at that. There's another attack. And this is actually another big one that's been out there, is the browser updates. And again, people, when they're working at home, it's not as easy to walk over to your peer and say like, hey, is this legit? Or did you get this sketchy email? Did you get this update? Like, is IT pushing out these updates to these things? It's hard to know. So, and then also again, being distracted, people are just not paying as much attention, because it's like, hey, I'm just doing some other stuff, just clicking around. A lot of people have often, it pops up and they don't even think about it, like click yes, updated, sure. But anyway, good choice. One more. All right, so antivirus update detected. So he's cranking through work now. He's getting towards the end of his time here at the house. But yeah, oh shoot, another pop-up antivirus. So he did remember seeing an email this time from IT saying that all applications need to be updated. Don't sit on updates. So again, should he hit yes or no? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 no's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, pretty close. So yes has got it this time. And good. This time it wasn't. And the biggest difference here, is one was a pop-up via browser, and which can obviously be avoided, if you have like an ad block. In this case, his actual application pushed this update. But we'll get into some interesting tidbits about that in the near future as well. So, fun fact here. So, a big thing about why is, again, it could be preaching to the choir here, but why update your applications? The vendors will push out these vulnerabilities, the patches for vulnerabilities, then push, and while pushing out the update. But what we found is actually that within a week, attackers are able to weaponize those vulnerabilities and push that out to the public. So, unless you're updating within that week, it's you're leaving your systems vulnerable. That's what happened with the Selenium breach for their file transfer. Selenium's like, hey, we patched that problem. Also, we're sunsetting this application. But people were like, nah, I think I'm good. Like, who attacked CentOS anyway? Obviously, a major issue. So, yeah. So, and it's also like, it's not expensive, right? Because usually millions of dollars to build a zero-day exploit, but if the vendor's pushing you the vulnerability, that's free for them, right? They have the vulnerability, they have the target, like all they have to do is build the thing. And now people are able to build the thing in less than a week. So that's why, on that end, that's important. So, we have the time, so where should he go? Into the office this time, or coffee? Actually, no, we're gonna go to a coffee shop because we have the time. Overridden. So here we go, coffee shop. If Owen could live here, he would. So, he's busy, he's changed, he actually took a shower today, got to the coffee shop, he's sat down, it's actually like super crowded, hybrid work is ramping up, people are a lot more comfortable being in public, so, he finds a seat barely. But yeah, connects to the local Wi-Fi at the coffee shop. It's password protected, but the password is also written on the chalkboard, so it's not like super password protected. And here we go. So first decision, let's get to work. He doesn't have anything he needs to be on the VPN for, or at least on the corporate network. He doesn't need to be on the corporate network. Everything he needs to work on can just be accessed, commercial cloud. So he doesn't need the VPN. Should he do it? Yes or no? Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No's. 1. Oops. Yeah. So doesn't hurt. It might slow him down though. So one of the things that again, there's always trade-offs, and I'm sure your organizations, as everyone went remote, everyone started VPNing, and you start to see some throughput issues. So if offering a VPN is one of the big, security options you're doing for individuals, like if there's a throughput issue, they're gonna not do it, because again, he can actually do work without this VPN. But it's most important again to kind of, is train people to make that kind of a default habit for them. But if anything gets in their way, that can cause issues. And if it's a single factor gateway, like I said, VPN credit masquerading is like actually getting big, and that's like a direct remote access into your network, obviously. So, all right, still have time. Yeah, so definitely always something to consider. So, things are going to get a little different now, and we're going to roll to see whether or not someone steals his laptop. And so what happens is, he's had a lot of coffee at this point. He needs to use the bathroom, and he's not working with anyone. He's by himself. A lot of people in the shop, but he's going to get up and he's going to use the restroom. The computer's locked, but it's just leaving the computer there by itself. And the reason why I'm not going to do yes or no here, because I know everyone knows the answer is don't do that. But the reason why this is happening like this is because last Sunday I was at a coffee shop just doing some work, and I'm sitting there, and so I'm just drinking my coffee, doing my work. I look up, I see a laptop. Someone's working on a laptop, and it's a very, that clunky work laptop look. It's like I was like, this could be a government laptop, or it could be like maybe a big company's kind of out of date kind of laptop. I see a little CAC reader built into it, so I was like, most likely either work or government. Go back to do my work. Look up again, and I see that they have a second laptop, even older, even chunkier, and this time with a CAC sticking out. So I was like, clearly, either government or consultant or something for the government. Also, this coffee shop is across the street from the DARPA headquarters, so I was like, high chance that, that there is some sort of government work happening here, and also high chance that there's someone out here looking to exploit something. So yeah, and then so I was like, all right, cool. You got your government laptops working, good for you. And they got up. And they got up 4 times. And I was sitting there like CAC sticking out a laptop sitting there, bag full of things. I was like, oh my gosh, I always thought this was a silly thing. They're like, laptops get stolen or whatever, that's a big security issue, we need to make sure our hard drives are locked down. But I witnessed myself somebody who just really had no care in the world about what happens to their hardware. So because of that, we're running this 3 times. Owen has 3 chances to get his laptop stolen. And what we're gonna do is I brought this D6 here. We're gonna have to pick a number. If it lands on that number, he'll get his laptop stolen. So first number, who wants 1 through 6? Somebody pick 5. 5. Here we go. 1. He made it. Second number. 3. 2. Oh, he's getting lucky. We're in a casino, right? So we have to bring out some sort of gambling aspect. All right, last number. What do we got? 4. 1. He made it. Congratulations. He's just really leaving his hardware out there, work and personal laptop, but he made it out okay. So miss, no loss, but not a great habit. Yeah, like I said, honestly, it blew my mind. I was sitting there like, yeah, this is awful. Someone could have walked off of that. I wasn't gonna do it, but that being said, you gotta build this in, right? This is a reality out there. People are doing this. this needs to be part of the strategy. Like when you're building out your cybersecurity strategies, like know that people are doing some stupid things and doing some risky things because they don't believe they're going to be the one, right? So it's like, hey, I'm not going to, like I come to this coffee shop all the time, you know, these look like all nice people, all professionals, no one's going to steal my laptop, no one's going to try to do anything bad, but I mean, like I said, of the places that someone's probably lurking around, like being across the street from DARPA is probably there. All right, so because of that, you know, actually I should have said home, but you know, we're gonna again go straight here to the office. And you know, to be honest, he came for the snacks, don't we all? Also, to be honest, he just straight up doesn't have a printer at his house, so he needs to print papers out of the office. Again, totally reality of what's happening now. But yeah, so he's taking his laptop all around. He's had a lot of fun. It's time to just hook right into that corporate network. And unfortunately, because of the way they've run their stuff, is as long as you've been authenticated before, that's all you need to do. That device is authenticated again. So he's good to go. So, you know, and this is the end of the scenario here. So after math, you guys made it through, right? So he didn't get compromised. Otherwise, you know, they would have harvested some VPN creds. They would have, you know, they're only using a single factor gateway. They would use Print Nightmare to Privesk and eventually work their way to a dev network where they're going to push some very suspicious looking code to the repo. But you guys made it up. You made it out today. So you successfully worked a single day without getting compromised. Congratulations. Hopefully the same is true for all his peers. So, you know, one thing about, you know, what we just went through is like, obviously nothing was like too mind-blowing there, but it is a good method in addition to just regular user training, like having some sort of narrative. Again, I'm sure you all know, but the more that we need to push the responsibility on the individuals, the more we need to just be entertaining. The narrative is the number one way people remember. Does anyone remember Owen's first name that starts with a P? Pinkney, yeah, sorry, it's a really random detail, but hey, I mean, you remember it, you probably remember exactly the whole story chain we went through and some of the weird details that we did. But, you know, it wouldn't be a good story if we didn't have a twist, so, the twist. So yeah, Software Solutions Core is actually one of your vendors, and so if that got compromised on that side, that code got pushed, Software Solutions Core just pushed an update. Your IT staff says, you know, they're a verified, legitimate vendor. They need an update. I just told you that weaponization happens within a week. You know, let's get this application updated. But if Owen got compromised, if they got onto that dev network, if they pushed a backdoor that just got legitimately verified through their, you know, CI/CD process, what do you do, right? So the growing supply chain attacks is another reason why we need to take the concept of a perimeter and bring it down to as granular as possible, because that's a legitimate company selling you legitimate software that got compromised. Like you can't, how do you track, you know, your own, not just your own security, but security after security, like down the chain? And the only way to do that, again, is massive attack surface. The only way to do that is to focus on what's most important to the organization, secure that, and then work your way up from there. So really appreciate you guys watching the presentation. That's everything we got. Feel free to contact me if you want. If you didn't like it, roast me on Twitter. If you did like it, feel free to roast me on Twitter. But yeah, any questions? Yes?
My organization, Zero Trust, is pretty difficult to do. On your slide, you ended that paragraph with the word compromise. What is Zero Trust?
So the question was that in his organization, Zero Trust is difficult to do. Ended the paragraph with, you know, compromise. Is there a, sorry, what's the last part? A partial Zero Trust? So Zero Trust is, you know, is in general just like an architecture concept. So in a way, you know, there isn't like you can't go out and buy Zero Trust, obviously, but to your point, you know, we need to, it's really an ongoing process of getting more and more secure via that method. So, you know, what it could look like today, so let's say your organization has one large network that they have secured via traditional methods. You don't have to go all the way to securing every piece of data, right? So Zero Trust can be a process. So it goes from, hey, we got one big network to maybe 5 networks that are segmented based off of user roles, right? So we got dev network now, business network. So that way, if there's a compromise, it's harder to traverse from network to network. Because at the end of the day, also zero trust is taking the concept. It used to be that like cybersecurity was, hey, let's keep the hackers out, let's keep attackers out, and that's the goal. But what we're seeing is that you can't make that assumption anymore. Like networks are compromised all the time. People are selling creds all the time. Insider threats happening as well, and that's even entirely different than the whole actual attack piece. So if you're assuming that your network's compromised, then it's like, what do you do after that? And that's what zero trust is all about. So they're saying, like, assume that network's compromised. How do we make it difficult for an attacker to achieve their end state goal? Because usually getting on the first box isn't the goal. Even priv-asking on the first box isn't the goal. But it's usually to traverse to certain networks to get, either it's going to be to maybe they want to install some spyware on an Exchange server. That's pretty hot right now, right? So maybe they want to do that. Maybe they want to push some code to the code repo. Maybe they want to just like break everything all at once. But either way, again, as we all know, hacking isn't an instant thing. It isn't just like, let me just go hack Google right now or in a minute. It's like it's a long process, right? It takes a number of months usually for a good campaign. And what that means is when we hear about these effects, that means those attackers have been in there for months, and oftentimes multiple different parties are in there at once. So and so that's why it's fun to try to deconflict that. But yeah, so that being said, like if you assume that they're already in, how do we fix that? And that's making sure that, like, think about their end state goal, think about what is the objective of the attacker, how do I make it hard? If they already have a hook in, how do I make it hard to get there? And again, a lot of segmentation, and I'm saying that like we need to go beyond network segmentation down to even like identification per data point. Yeah. Thanks for the question. Anyone else? All right. Well, really appreciate coming to the talk, and that's everything. Feel free to talk to me if you have any more questions afterwards. Thanks.